What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. I am looking forward to connecting with this next guest. I've been chasing her around for a number of months because her business is booming. From Caldwell, Iowa, founder of Accelerated Automation, Miss Mariah Gates. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad that we were finally able to make this work, and I appreciate your persistence.
No problem.
That was
I
horrible.
am just super interested in what you do to hear about your business, how it's got going, because as we were just talking briefly off air, I think it's a service that is desperately needed. And as most of our agencies evolve, we really need to be in touch with our CRM. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you found the insurance space, and and then we can go from there.
Yeah, so I got into kind of the financial sector when I was 18 and started as a bank teller at Wells Fargo, worked there a couple of years, went to Chase and became a personal banker. Then I was a commercial business banker. Then I was a branch manager. And through that process in the corporate world over about 9 years, realized it just wasn't an environment I really enjoyed and was looking for something else, had my resume out on, different job sites and was recruited into insurance, which I think most of us usually are. Most agents I talk to are pulled into it. So that's kind of how I got into insurance. I was recruited by Farmers.
Yep.
Sorry.
It's okay.
And started a scratch agency. And of course they call it scratch for a reason, because you're literally scratching and, clawing to like make it. I worked in the district office. The fail rate was so high. I saw so many other agents come in and just, turn and burn. They were there for a couple months and they would be gone. I did really well as a scratch agent, was able to, make several awards trips and win some awards and things like that. And then they asked me to take over an agency in a neighboring city that the agent was let go for a contract violation. So that was really interesting. I got to step into an existing agency and clean it up. I sold that in 2018 and moved my family and I to Idaho, not Iowa, but that's okay. So we're in Idaho.
Did I say Iowa?
Yeah, it's okay.
I am sorry.
It's okay. And then took over my second agency that I've ever owned here. So I've, done scratch, I've done acquisition, I've sold agency, I sold an agency and have my agency now in Meridian, Idaho. And then I got into automation really out of just necessity in my own business about 5 years ago. I guess almost 5 years now. So I was introduced to Agency Zoom through a marketing program I had joined called Fully Covered, which I really enjoyed. And they kind of helped me to see some other options outside of Farmers Insurance, because that's the company I represent. And in doing so, I just got really obsessed with the CRM and the automation, because I saw really, it wasn't even about scaling my business. It was about getting my life back. I have 2 children. That was a big reason I became self-employed, is because in the corporate world, a day off or your kid is sick, it's like hell froze over. How dare you have a sick kid? It just was the worst environment, in my opinion. So for a family. So I really dove in, stopped selling insurance, stopped servicing in my own agency, really just tasked that to my team and dove full into my CRM. Spent about a year learning it, tweaking it, changing it, making a ton of mistakes, because there was no one to help me with it back then. And then after doing that for about a year and really just sharing it, like telling others through social media, I would just find things that were cool or that worked well, or we'd have a sale that happened because of automation. And I would be so excited. I would share it through social media to help other agents kind of know, like, hey, this is something you could look at. As I was doing that, and I also became a beta tester with the CRM company, agents started asking me for help. Hey, can you help me with it? What should I do here? What should I do there? And I just kept saying, no, I don't have time to help you. I can't do that. I just share tips. Then the company approached me and asked me to officially help agents with their CRM. I actually said no to that for 3 months. I kept asking, and finally I just had been really praying about it and kind of looking inside and trying to figure out if this was a good opportunity, something I should spend time on and, steer some of my energy away from my insurance agency, which didn't seem right at the time. But looking back, I'm very grateful that I did that. So when as far as like the business itself, it grew out of demand from the customers that we service, because I wasn't looking to get into automation or become an automation specialist. It's just what happened. And it's been an amazing journey. Last 3 years officially doing it. We are, it was just myself when I started, and now we're up to 12 staff members. Wow. We have helped over 500 agencies nationwide, captive, independent, you name it, commercial, personal lines, whatever they're working on. So it's been a really amazing journey, a blessing, and I've learned a ton about my business and other agencies as well along the way.
Yeah, amazing. So, I mean, you're completely self-taught, right? I mean, from what you did, and basically out of, because I recall, I mean, every time in the, agency Zoom Facebook group, someone had a question, basically you would get tagged as like, hey, can you answer this? And then, I mean, I think that was right at the beginning of, and I don't know if you were even had your, consulting business set up quite yet. Maybe you did. I want to say that was maybe 2018, 2019. Does that sound right?
So I started using it in 18, and then I was officially really helping agents in like 2020. So right, like December 19 is when I kind of launched, Accelerate Automation. We actually rebranded a couple times trying to kind of find our niche.
Yeah.
After I became a Vertafore Orange partner, because Vertafore, of course, purchased Agency Zoom about 2 years ago. When I became an Orange partner with them, we kind of had to change a little bit of our branding because it was very closely tied to Agency Zoom. So yeah, that was, a little bit of change there. So we're Accelerated Automation now, but so it's evolved for sure over time.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, how that evolved from, kind of being a helper and an advisor to, I'm going to go ahead and make a business out of this. And of course you have to completely come up with, a program and a pay structure, and then just like any other business, develop a website. So tell me a little bit about what that kind of looked like, and what maybe you thought it might be. Probably not at that point something that might turn into a team of 12 and growing.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, so it's very interesting, because with an insurance agency, the business structure is kind of there, right? I mean, we know, what we're selling. The product is, we don't have to create the product, and the sales process, while we all do it maybe a little differently, we have our own spin on it, it's pretty much the same. Whereas starting a business where it's, even when I tell people what I do, I'm like, I have an automation, consulting business. And they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
So even myself, like defining, like, what is that? What do we do? What do we don't do? It's been a really interesting journey. I've actually really enjoyed it. I've kind of found that I'm probably more an entrepreneur than I am like a business owner, I guess. I love the challenge of creating a business out of nothing, but even little things like, a website. So I had no idea we were going to, grow like this. And so I started with just a GoDaddy website. So what we have up now, I have a new website being developed now, but is what we have up now. I've tweaked and adjusted it based on feedback and questions we've received. And everything that we've done through this journey has really just been kind of like, this is needed. So we're going to solve this problem. Here's a question. This keeps coming up. So let's solve that problem. And we're 3 years in. To say that my to-do list or like my list is any shorter is definitely not true, because as we've grown, we've had to create different departments. When I started building automation for agents, I would always ask them, like, we started basically doing kind of custom stuff. I would say, what is your process? When you get a lead in, how long do you work the lead? How many times do you expect your producer to call them? When are you following up? How are you tracking your X dates? And I was really shocked to hear, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay. So, when you're holding your staff accountable to their activities for the day, how many dials, how much talk time, how much follow up? Again, I would hear, I don't know. What do you recommend? That's what I always heard. What do you recommend? So we really got away from doing custom, because what I found is that unfortunately most agencies, including mine before I jumped into my CRM, really don't have processes in place that we expect to be replicated throughout the organization. It's kind of everyone does things a little bit their own way, which is very interesting. We still see that a lot today. Coming from a very structured corporate world in banking, it was just shocking to me because there was a process for everything. You're going to make a cashier's check for a client. Here are these step-by-step instructions on exactly how to do it. But that didn't really exist in agencies. So going in and talking to the agent, learning about their processes, we had tested a bunch of things, kind of deciding, okay, this is going to be better on the broad scale. We're going to have agents start with this process that we know works well and we've tested. So we build that out and then we help them adjust from there. But, going from just myself, I started with one agent that I tested my theory on, a friend of mine in California. And, I charged him $500 and I had to type out every single email and text. And it took me an entire month to do it, to now having, 2 full-time fulfillment people who are building accounts, 4 trainers. We have sales reps as well, but we've had to build out these different departments and specialize those departments to serve the client best. Someone who's really good at doing a demo call and a sales call for an agent who's on the fence is not going to be good at training. Someone who's really good at, data entry and fulfillment and doing the actual build in the account is also not going to be good at sales, so there's different skill sets out there. And I had started to specialize in my own insurance agency. Like, these people just sell, these people just service. And I took that same mentality into this business as we grew and learned more about what our agents needed. But really, the business has grown and changed based on agent feedback. We're constantly asking the agents that we work with, what do you want to see from us? What worked well? What didn't work? What was, maybe choppy in your experience? And we've built a lot of automation on our own back end to make sure our customers have a very seamless experience. They know what to expect next. We stay in contact with them. But it's just been a journey of every single month, asking for feedback from our clients, asking for feedback from my team. I have 5 team meetings a week with different departments and different groups that we get together, which is interesting because we are literally all across the country, all the way from Washington State, all the way down to Florida. But I meet with the team and, we're very collaborative. And I think that's what's made us successful and stand out compared to some of the other consultants who have gotten into the space, is that we just continually evolve and adjust to what our clients need.
Yeah. So tell me, let's get into some specifics of what you are doing for an agency. Obviously, you do kind of a discovery call, find out what kind of processes they have, and depending on that, then what are some of the most common things that you are automating for an agency?
Yeah, so we develop different packages that we offer that agents can choose from based on what they want us to do. And we started with sales automation. That's what Agency Zoom was in the beginning, was a sales CRM. And then they launched and evolved over about a 2-year process, a feature called Service Center, which allows you to also create tickets and automation for servicing your agency clients. So we started with the sales piece. When my team talks to an agent on a sales call, they're asking, what systems do you use now? Why are you looking for a CRM? What do you think that you're missing? What are some of the pain points in your agency currently? And we hear a lot of different things. Some of the common ones are they just know that they're not following up and utilizing the leads that they have in their agency to their full potential. Statistically, an agent receives a lead from whichever source from their marketing, and they call them twice and stop. And we all know that, sometimes a sale can take up to 15 asks over time. And without a system in place to automate that, it's really impossible for a team to be able to physically reach out and follow up with all those individuals. So that was what we started with, was just the sales pipelines, that's going to have this many emails and this many text messages. What I quickly learned in my own agency and doing automation is, I guess I should say, like, what I was used to was very generic automation, right? We all get the marketing emails in our inboxes, and they all look the same, and they're very pretty, HTML formatted, and they look very nice, good imagery, but they're very generic. It's very obvious that they're sent to many, many people.
Yeah.
And I started playing with the idea of really targeting our automation. So first of all, text automation for the most part. We do some video stuff too, but mostly just plain text automation, but really making it very specific to that lead. And that's what we found the best success with. So we have determined over the last 3 years that agencies use, a number of different marketing sources, but there's about 24 of them. So we built automation specifically for 24 different categories of lead types that speak to how and why is this person connected with us. So it looks to the prospect like the producer, or the staff member is typing out an email to connect with them. Hey, your mortgage lender, said you were closing on a home and we're here to help you with your insurance, blah, blah, blah. But we automated that based on that lead source. And also by doing that, it gives the agency owner a ton of data as to how many leads are they getting from each marketing source, what is their contact and close rate, what is their recycle rate. And then when Agency Zoom launched custom pipelines, we started creating recycle pipelines, like X-date pipelines. So then you can say, hey, I got this referral from maybe a mortgage lender or an internet lead vendor, and I didn't sell it in year 1 or 2, but I sold it in year 3. So you can see the actual life cycle of the sales process. How long is it taking your team to close a lead, and how long should you work that for? But the agents I've talked to before that, they might have requoted or X-dated someone in 6 months or a year, but that was pretty much it. They never tried again after that. And we're having them try, we build a minimum of 3 years, and we encourage them to kind of clone and copy that out for a little bit longer. Of course, all along, the prospect can opt out of automations. They can, say, I don't want to receive this anymore, and that's fine. You just move those individuals to your dead file. But there's so much missed in the fact that we just don't have the capacity to follow up for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And with automation, the system does it for you. And it's a wonderful, like when we have staff that are a little hesitant or skeptical, when they get those emails back from prospects that they, had been following up for 3 years in the system, and they say, hey, you know what? I just moved into a new house. My insurance, it was a mess. I really do need a quote. I want to get that taken care of. And they get that email, and now they have a live hot lead that they didn't even have to do anything for. Yeah. They absolutely love it. The buy-in is there. They love the low-hanging fruit that just comes into their pipeline throughout the day because the system is doing the work for them.
Yeah.
So that's really where we started.
Yeah. What or do you have some statistics on what automation gets a better response between, say, text and email?
Yeah, so unfortunately with Agency Zoom, it doesn't track texting like a response or open rate. So that's kind of a bummer.
I know. It is.
It does track the email open rate. And so what I've kind of learned in my journey in marketing and automation over the last few years is that the average email open rate for kind of like cold or opt-in marketing is about 10%. And that's not insurance specific. That's just across the board. It's been holding strong. And actually last year, or no, maybe it wasn't last year, I think it was in 2021, the open rate was closer to 18%. So email marketing does work, and it actually is getting a little bit better. We found that our automation that's very, very specific, again, to like why they're connected, and it was that text-based. And again, the whole idea is it looks like I typed it out, right? Yeah. It's not massively long and formatted. We're not losing them. We're asking a question to encourage response. Our automations have a 40% open rate across the board on average for prospecting. And then with texting, of course, we know that texting has a 90% read rate. Everybody sees their text messages. But now with the new, TCR requirements because of the FCC, it's a little bit harder to text everybody. So you have to have that explicit opt-in. And so it's going to be interesting to see what that does. But I mean, I've been texting in my own agency since I became an agent. So we got texting through what's called Touchpoints Pro. I think it's still around. It just kind of became a little antiquated. So we replaced it in our agency. But we had been texting forever, and customers absolutely loved it. So I think that both have a place. Email and text both have a place. We definitely see more responses through text message, but we do see open rate and engagement and responses through email. But if you're not texting, I tell agents they're really missing out.
Talk a little bit about the service center side of things, because I don't know that is something that a lot of agencies, I'm guessing now, I don't know for sure, but I don't know that as many agencies have taken advantage of that. So what are the benefits of, and how can that help your operation by using the service center?
Yeah, that's it's been a really interesting shift in what we've seen from our agents, and from, when we first started a year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when we first started in our first year in business. Everybody was just trying to write more business, right? That was the whole goal. And we would talk about Service Center, and they were like, yeah, I'm not really worried, but like I want to sell more. I want to follow up with leads
Yeah.
more. And this last year has been a totally different shift, because the industry is just so upside down right now. There's carriers jumping out of markets, non-renewals. There's so many different underwriting requirements that are being changed all the time. So there's a lot of disruption to our existing book of clients, and we've seen agents really interested more on the Service Center side than they were in prior years. And I think it actually, all this industry disruption just kind of put a big spotlight on a hole that most of us have in our agency, which is, how do we service our clients? What is that process? How do we stay organized? The benefits of Service Center is that it is a ticketing system. So you call into your agent and you say, hey, I need to add a car. I just purchased a new vehicle. And they say, great, what's the VIN number? Oh, I don't have the VIN number on me. I didn't know you needed that. I mean, we've all had that conversation, right? Okay, well, send me the VIN number. And what we would do then is create a service ticket in our agency that this is an add car. This needs to happen. And we put it into our pipeline. Well, we've all been there where the client totally forgets, right? If your staff isn't following up, and this is just one type of example, they're not following up and they totally forget that they needed to add their car, and God forbid they have an accident and didn't add the car, and it's outside of the window that your insurance extends out for that 30 days. And now you have a whole fiasco on your hands. Well, with the ticketing system, you have it in place. There's a follow-up scheduled. So if your customer forgets, your staff member is going to see, hey, you know what, last week I talked to this person, I never got their VIN number. So they're going to follow up with them. The vast majority of agents that we talk to, this process now in their agencies is at their CSR's desk on a legal pad. They have a little notepad. They write down, Mr. Smith needs to add a car. And then they just keep making a list and they go through and cross it off. God forbid you lose the notepad, or that CSR leaves. That's the other big, huge thing that we've seen is turnover in agencies, where they, the staff member either quits or they're fired, and they have no idea what they were working on. What were they working on? What was their pipeline? So you've got, one CSR who has a legal pad. The other CSR is keeping all her reminders in Outlook, and you turn off her email and now all her reminders are gone. Or somebody's using, calendar for reminders, and all their processes are just all over the place. Who knows what's being worked on, or if something did fall through the cracks, how do you know? And how do you track that down? That's what we see a lot of. And even in agents that are using their AMS system for this kind of stuff, there's no automation to remind them and prompt them. So sometimes those task lists just get really far behind. With Service Center, if you have a team member who leaves, you can simply go in and terminate that employee and reassign in about 3 clicks every single thing that was in their name. All their leads, all their reminders and tasks, all their service tickets. You just move it over to the person who's now covering, and life goes on, business goes on, and you can see everything that was being worked on. So having a central place where you and your team work through all day long has huge benefits to making sure that the agency can operate regardless of whether you have staff changes. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Now, are you able to, and obviously I don't use Service Center, but are you able to just assign kind of a general service task, and then whoever can take it can take it?
So this task has to be assigned to somebody, a user in Agency Zoom. But what I have seen some agents do when they have, a team of CSRs is we'll create kind of like a shell user that's, for example, it would be the name of the user might be service, at Gates Insurance. And that user, maybe multiple team members log into that user login and work through there. You have to have really good, clear communication, and maybe using some tag systems to kind of capture those, and so we know who is assigned to it. But ultimately, the best way to do it so that you have accountability is to have each individual team member assign their own customers and tasks that they're working on, and they're responsible for following up on. It's also much clearer when you have it that way, because if you have a team member on vacation or out sick, you can say, hey, you're covering for this person, go in and filter under their name and make sure, these things stay up to date. By using the generalized service one, some agents do it, but I don't find it to be ideal. There's a lot of who was responsible for this? Well, they kind of claimed it. They kind of texted them. They kind of sent a task, so that accountability is important, making sure that the customers are taken care of all the way through.
Yeah. What are some common things that you see agencies or agents not taking advantage of that they probably should be, or you feel like they're really probably missing out on?
So agents that don't have a CRM, I feel like are honestly just working way harder than they need to.
Well, yeah.
And I can just speak from experience because I was an agent without a CRM and then with a CRM. And when I say without, my company gave us a system, but it was just not good. We'll put it that way. It wasn't what is available on the outside independent channel. Captive agents have what their companies give them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in my experience, it just doesn't usually really keep up with what's available on the outside market. So working way harder than you need to. These, sitting there responding to a million emails when you could have a lot of that stuff automated. The other thing that they're missing out on is, like I said, just really squeezing all of the opportunity out of the marketing dollars that they spend. I have had agents who, one in particular down in Texas, who was spending thousands of dollars on lead vendors. And honestly, after about 6 months of all of those thousands of dollars every single month, he turned off his leads because his team they were missing opportunities. People were responding, but the team didn't have the capacity to get back to those prospects. So they were missing a lot. So they actually dropped their marketing budget by quite a bit because the system was connecting them with more people than they physically could have before.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And then the other miss, I would say, is really owning the customer experience from start to finish. So I would ask, agents a lot of the time, when you sell a policy to a customer, what happens next? Well, what do you mean, right? Well, they have to sign their documents and blah, blah, blah. Okay, but what happens next? How is the experience with your agency different than the agency down the street? What's unique about your office? So one of the things I think that, and this is in general, even with our customers, we wish they would take more advantage of is video marketing and video emails and communications like that. Being able to see your face, to hear your voice, and see kind of who you are as a person really resonates with people. That's been one of the things we've done in our agency that we have had the most positive feedback for. One of my favorite things is that I have had my agency in Idaho for about 5 years, and actually a little less than 5 years. And there's an agent in my neighboring town who's been an agent for over 10, probably closer to 15 at this point. And I was determined to beat him in Google reviews. And he had been actively looking, like he had a company he was paying to collect Google reviews for his agency. I did all mine through Agency Zoom, but we really wanted to make the customer onboarding experience extremely unique. And we surpassed him within our 4-year time frame when he had been doing it for over 15 years. And because our customers were just shocked, and it was different, right? It was very different. They got to hear from me. They got to hear from their service person. So we had, our CSR, we had a video, she would introduce herself. I really encourage that for like office managers and agents to introduce yourself to the customers that way. And then adding a lot of value throughout that time. So we've all seen, kind of standardized marketing or drip campaigns for onboarding, but sending things out like, hey, it's winter. Have you winterized your home? Send that to all of your home customers with a tip sheet of how to do that. At one point, we sent an email to our customers. It's totally off the topic of insurance, but
Yep.
I had discovered how to make my avocados last longer. It's just the weirdest thing ever. By putting them in like a water bath in my fridge. And I was like, this is so cool. I have to tell my customers. And so I made like an email that we sent out in our retention campaign to our customers that was like, hey, here's a really fun life hack that has nothing to do with insurance, but it's saving me a ton of money on my avocados. And like, people thought it was so funny.
Yeah.
And they liked it, right? So be different. Things that are interesting and exciting to you, have an onboarding process where you're touching base with your customers, you're staying in contact with them through retention campaigns, but make them meaningful and different and interesting. Not just every single email is about, you should have more liability,
No.
Mix it up.
Send something out about dogs, for crying out loud. People go crazy over that stuff. And yes, and it doesn't, as an unique way to stay in front of them and offer something. I mean, it's, that's a little bit outside of the box, but they're going to remember that much more than my bodily injury liability email.
I had people that would come in to make their payments and they're like, by the way, I put my avocados in a water bath now, and I was like,
Avocados. I
that's
love
so
that.
great. Like, it's so funny. And then the other one that's, I would say in general, what agents miss is kind of know your market and be involved in your community. We write in 3 states, but we still write the majority of our business like in our area, right, where our office is at. People like to do business kind of locally. And one of the things that we do is we have like newsletters that go out to our customers that are about community events, because we know in our market here in Idaho, we have a lot of people moving into the state. There's like over 2,000 people a month or something like that that move into the Boise area. And because a lot of our customers are new, they're finding us on Google because we put a lot of time there, and then they're new to the area. So we will say, hey, here's a local trunk or treat, or here's the dairy days in Meridian. This is going to be happening in the next couple of weeks. Events that are local, those are really good communications to send out to people as well. And you'll get a ton of responses of people that will be like, oh, thank you for this email. By the way, I had a question about my rental car coverage, or we just bought a side by side, or whatever it is, because you're being top of mind. So again, just make it unique. Don't make everything about insurance. Don't get me wrong. We send communications about insurance, about slow leak coverage, and we do send out a liability worksheet that they can fill out to figure out how much coverage should they have. Do they need an umbrella? We send out communications about life, but that's not all we send.
Right.
We send out fun stuff, and that's how we keep people from unsubscribing, because it's interesting. They want to see what we're sending next.
Yeah, that's great. Talk a little bit about some of the other tech that can be involved, either that you use or you see other agents use, that really kind of make the miracle happen when you can string a couple of these pieces of tech together, like a Canopy Connect, or a Risk Advisor or a Salt, where you barely touch something, and because you have a process that's set up and you have all your information that you need to quote it and get back to somebody as efficiently as possible. What have you seen that works well in that regard?
Yeah. So initially, like, I started using like jot forms, like, to collect quote information. We always had quote forms, but they were literally paper quote forms in our office.
Yeah.
And of course, then there's no way to stop your producer from forgetting to ask a question. So I would say first thing, like, definitely digitize your quote forms and put in logic or required fields. If you're going to use something like Risk Advisor or Salt, those are wonderful solutions. They're very robust and they're getting better every day. I think that those are needed in an agency, because at the end of the day, we all know that we are going to have new staff and experienced staff. And your experienced staff might never ever forget to ask the driver's occupation, but your new staff might forget for their first 5 conversations, and now you're missing a potential discount or something like that. So having a uniform quote sheet is really helpful. Also, it's very helpful because like, I had a team member who was working remote, and we were using paper then. And when she quit, she brought all her stuff back to the office, and I had all this stack of paper forms, and we could barely read her handwriting.
Right.
Barely. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a year's worth of quoting sheets that I can't even barely read. So get it so you can understand it, you can collect the information, you have all the analytics, and your team can't forget to ask important information, because we all know that once you get off the phone with somebody, getting them back on the line is very difficult, and that'll slow your sales process down.
Right.
So those forms are great. The other thing I think that every agency should have, this kind of comes back to how you're going to operate, but I believe that everyone needs to have a calendar system. Mm-hmm. So we use Calendly. That's been one of my favorite things. Scheduling policy reviews, commercial, renewal appointments, life insurance appointments. At this point, if I reach out to a business myself and they don't have the ability for me to see their availability and pick a time that works for me, I get so irritated, I move on to the next company.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that at this point, where we're at with technology, that somebody would have to call your office and say, I need to meet with the agent. Oh, can you do Monday at 2? No. Can you do Tuesday at 4? No. Can you do Wednesday? Like, what a waste of time. If someone needs an appointment, we say, hey, no problem. I'm going to text you this link right now. So let me know if you got it while we're on the phone. Oh, yep, I see the link. Great. Click on it, pick a time that works for you, and we'll be there. That is so fast. And at this point in the industry, with commission changes and all of this industry disruption, efficiency is really important. And our target clients are people like me now, right? I'm 36. Your target client is a millennial like me. I don't have the attention span for the back and forth. It drives me crazy. I want fast. I want it to be good quality, Like, we're still the generation that we want to know and we want to understand, but it needs to be efficient.
Yeah.
So
Well,
those are
that's
the
the
two big
expectation.
ones. Yeah.
That's the expectation, for that's how, just to stay on that for a second. That's the way that, say, your generation has run their whole life. So to expect, that group to go back to, oh, here, we're going to fill out this paper form, or I'm going to send this to you. No, has to be all connected. So I think that's one way I think a lot of agencies are missing out on, is that we have to communicate how people would like to communicate.
Mhm.
And then there's also a degree of my feeling, I want to have it both ways, that, well, they have to adapt to us. This is how we, handle things, digitally, and it's interesting. But yeah, I
I
agree
think
with
there's
you.
definitely space for both of those
Yeah.
opinions, because we do have clients who, we say, here's our calendar. Like, for example, this is just an example. And they say, well, I want to meet at this time. Well, it's not an available time. So you're going to have to
Yeah.
pick a time that's available. Well, gosh, you're my agent. I should be able to come in whenever I want. We don't operate that way, because we wouldn't be able to service our customers,
Yeah.
all our customers, at a reasonable time, right? It'd be like a doctor's office. That's kind of how I think about it. They have
Correct.
a schedule, they have a process. They probably hand you an iPad to fill out your intake form these days. And you're not going to change the way they do business,
Yeah.
but they're also wanting to make sure that their customers are happy with the experience and that they're doing business well. So again, put in place, policies and procedures, so the customer is operating in a way that you can operate your business well, but make it easy, right? Don't make a lot of pain points or struggle
Yeah.
points for your customer, because they're just going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. 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 Let's transition a little bit into um Mariah. Am I saying your name right, by the way?
Mhm.
That should have been first. Good to have two things wrong. That would have been embarrassing. Um, the entrepreneur, because this thing has grown and scaled pretty quickly. So, what has the evolution of accelerated automation been like, and what's the experience been like for you personally? Because I know you put a lot of time in.
Yeah, for me personally, it has just been, every day is a challenge, and I'm one of those people that I honestly get bored really easily. And so, I'll be totally honest here. When I sold my agency in Washington, I didn't
Mhm.
think I was going to get back into insurance, because I was honestly kind of bored. I'd kind of won the trips, and not that I was the biggest agent or the best agent, but I just felt like, okay, I know how to do this, and I kind of got it down. And that's just how my personality is. My husband always jokes that every 3 years I'm changing my mind. He's such a saint, and he lets me do that and change direction. But when I got into automation, I just saw something that, to me, it feels like is a never ending journey, because now, of course, we have ChatGPT, right? Which is even just like mind
Yeah.
boggling, the things that it can do.
Yeah.
But getting into the tech space, and I'll be honest, I'm probably the last person that I would have, if you would have bet me like 10 years ago, oh, you'll work in the tech space one day, I would have bet you $1 million. That would never happen. I was like one of the last people to join social media.
Mm.
I'm a country girl. I grew up in a small town. I ride horses and camp, and like that's
Yeah.
what I like to do. But it's so challenging. There's so much opportunity. It's so helpful for businesses that that's what's really attracted me to it. As far as the journey of creating the company and helping agents, it's been extremely challenging. Like, there's been days where you want to cry and quit and crawl into a hole. And there's a peer that I have who is an influencer kind of in the space as well. And the other day I sent him a message. I go, do you ever just wish nobody knew your name? Because there's days like that, right, where
Yeah.
my DMs are blowing up, or my emails, and I want to help everybody. That's just kind of who I am. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to help people, help kids. But you can only do so much.
Yep.
So creating a lot of boundaries around my time, which I still struggle with. Still hard for me not to work from 6 to 6 every day, and on the weekends it doesn't feel like a weekend to me. But I've learned a lot about business structure through trial and error. Learned a lot about attracting people to my business. I will tell you, I have not recruited a single employee. They have
Wow.
been attracted to the way that I talk about our customers, the way that we do business. Just yesterday, it was the 1st of November. It was payroll day. I post about how I am so honored to be able to pay these amazing employees who help our customers. And I thank our customers for helping me to create jobs in a space that is needed that supports their business. And every single month, I have at least 3 or 4 people who message me, hey, are you hiring? I want to work with you. My team members regularly post on social media or bring me referrals of individuals who, this is my friend, this is my neighbor. I grew up with this person and they want better work-life balance. They want to work for a boss who listens to them. They want to be in a collaborative environment where they can give opinions. And so that has been really probably my favorite part, is people reaching out, wanting to work with us and wanting to help our customers. And if you talk to any agent we've trained, you will hear that they're like, your trainers are the best. Your people are the best. We hear that all the time because they're really motivated to help people. And I didn't have to like recruit them or convince them to do this job. They were called to do it. So that's been a really huge blessing as well. But ultimately the journey, just challenging, eye-opening, a huge blessing. I don't know what else to say. Like the nitty gritty is, I'm working with my attorney more than ever, my CPA more than ever, the structure of like, how do I take care of these employees?
Yes.
What are our policies? I just had a team member who had a baby and I was like, oh, I don't have a maternity policy. Let's put that in place.
Yeah.
And you're just piecing together, this organization as you go. It's been interesting.
It's kind of baptism by fire of how to scale and grow a business, right? I mean, and you don't have a choice now because it's going that fast. And it's just, I mean, like I mentioned, it seems every time that I would speak to you, I was like, we just took on 4 new employees, and I can't imagine. So let's touch on a little bit. This is a tough one. How are you spending the majority of your time?
Yeah. So at this very moment, my insurance agency is actually being sold. So it'll be closed in the next 30 days.
Okay.
Something had to give. This is a little embarrassing, but personal. And I'm a big believer in being honest. Being stuck at my desk working because I love what I do and it doesn't feel like work to me. So it's very easy for me to work all the days. But that's taken a toll on my health as well. I haven't prioritized my own health. I've gained some weight. There's just been some things that have happened where I'm like, okay, I have to make some decisions here that are going to be better long-term in my life. And so deciding to let my insurance agency go is kind of an identity crisis because I've been an agent for almost 10 years. It's weird. It will be weird not to be one. But we have really great customers who've all volunteered, not all, but a chunk of them have volunteered to kind of be our test agencies, because we don't roll anything out that isn't tested, right? As far as like a new pipeline or a new automation, or, hey, we're going to use emojis in the subject line because, we have a higher open rate. We want to test that theory first. So that's changing in my life. I spend my days building automation. So right now we have 2 large projects. We're finishing 4 service pipelines and we're building out Medicare to work inside of Agency Zoom. We're partnered with a large Medicare agent out of Colorado, who is the largest Medicare agency in the state, has it down. My day is spent with a lot of like introductory or networking calls. So, individuals who I know in the space will say, hey, you should talk to this person. I also do a lot of demos. So for example, we did like Adapt API, Loss Run Pro, Risk Advisor. We do a demo with the owner or user of what is this service? What does it look like, feel like? How does it run? How can it help the business? Because one of the things as an agent I saw is I didn't like that I had to schedule a sales call for everything. Oh, you want to see how Risk Advisor works? Schedule a sales call. I just want to see what it looks like to see if I'm even interested in a sales call. So I do a lot of demos. We put those on our YouTube page for agents to just get exposure. And we don't get any kickbacks for any of that. It's literally just, hey, here's some resources, go check it out. And then the rest of my time is really spent with my team, cleaning things up on the back end, making sure things run very seamless. Hey, do we need more staff? I have a team lead in each department who's responsible for bringing me feedback on any issues, what's working well, positive feedback, negative feedback. And I expect them to be very, very honest. And then it's up to me to make those decisions. And sometimes they're very happy with the decision and other times they're not. That's okay. That's my job. But that's how my day is spent. And then I try to carve out a little bit of time to spend with my family or, ride my horses. That's kind of my favorite thing to do, but.
So difficult to balance, right? And to have both. I think that, and I'm very happy to hear that you are getting rid of the insurance agency side of things, just because you can't do it all well, right? And if it's causing you stress, and if this is booming, I think that's fantastic. And this is clearly a passion of yours,
Mm.
right? So I mean, I think that's just a much better place. Um, I told you we're kind of up against our time frame here, so I don't want to run over. This has been great. You shared so much. If someone wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way to get in touch with accelerated automation?
Yeah, so our website is probably just the best way because, like I said, demos, I'm a big fan of those. So we do have a demo on our website of, it's definitely a mix of what we do and what agencies can do. But acceleratedautomation.net is the website. And on there, you can see a demo, you can see the packages that we offer, as well as, any upcoming services. Like right now, we have a wait list for the Medicare service. We have a wait list for Zapier services. We haven't touched on Zapier, but that's an amazing tool to
Yeah,
connect softwares
yeah.
together. And we have a really exciting launch coming up on that. But that's the best way to reach us. You can schedule a call, one-on-one call with, either of my sales team gals, which are Kinsey and Krista right now, and they will be able to answer all your questions. And we'll do multiple calls if needed. We really want to make sure this is the right fit for the agent. Our goal is to have very happy clients. We don't want to work with every single agency. We're not always a fit for every agency, but the ones we are a fit for, we're really committed to making sure that they have a great experience. So hit the website, watch the demo, do a sales call, see if we're right for you.
And she puts out a lot of really good content on YouTube. If you want to get a
Mhm.
sense for what they do, a lot of good information in there, and then just free trainings on stuff. You mentioned Zapier, and that's too bad. That would have been a great topic to get into. So yeah, you can learn a lot just from what she puts out. And what's the name of that YouTube channel?
So the YouTube channel is also Accelerated Automation.
Yeah.
And then we also have a free Facebook group called Insurance Automation. So you can
Yep.
go on, it's just for agents. And again, tons of good content in there. Agents ask questions. It's very collaborative. There's a little over 4,000 agents in there. But the whole idea is to talk about automation specifically, not carrier appetite or things like that, but how can we automate? What software can we use? And we've got some really great individuals in there who share a ton of advice, all for free. So that's a good place to go as well.
Outstanding. Thank you again for taking the time today. I know you have a very busy schedule. Everyone else, thank you for listening to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. We'll see
Thanks
you
for having
next
me,
week.
Fred. Appreciate it.